first time in 9 years, there are no Americans fighting in Iraq. 4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq. We did. 4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq. I did. 4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq, and I did. I told you we'd end the war in Iraq. We did. I said we'd end the Iraq war. We did. I told you I'd end the war in Iraq, and we did. I ended the war in Iraq as I promised. In 2008, I promised we'd end the war in Iraq. We've ended it. I was able to keep my promise and end the war in Iraq. In 2008, I promised we would end the war in Iraq, and we've ended it. The war in Iraq is over. The war in Iraq is over from ending the war in Iraq. That's why I ended the war in Iraq. For the first time in 9 years, there are no Americans fighting in Iraq.
President, do you have any second thoughts about pulling all ground troops out of Iraq?
You know what I just find interesting is the degree to which this issue keeps on coming up, as if this was my decision.
All right, folks. Sorry. As if this was my decision. He took a lot of bragging about his accomplishment of ending the war in Iraq, yet now when the pot's over boiling and all kinds of troubles come to roost, the chickens have come home to roost, he wants to know why is everybody fixated on it. It wasn't his decision. Hey, I'm surprised he didn't blame the damn Republicans on that one. And he probably didn't. I just missed it. Well, here we are. This is the Francesco Abbruzzino show. This is Frankie, and we are back. I had to take yesterday off. If you notice, I got the new hairdo and the tan. I went out on a surfing session, and I got a little bit of a haircut. And I got rid of the gray. My wife says I look like an old man. I said, hon, I am an old man. So we got a show for you today. Not a lot of news out there. We're going to see what we can produce. Not a lot of breaking events have occurred. Just a lot of the same old stuff that's being regurgitated out there. Hopefully you were able to catch me on Tuesday when I did my live show on Phil's Gang. It was nationally syndicated, and I talked about Agenda 21 and many of the other issues out there and how the economy is coming to bear on these different issues. So hopefully you were able to catch that. This is free. I've been doing it for about 5 years on the local media outlets, national about a year, international year. We're trying to continue to make it free, and this is just one more addition to my other media outlets, such as my webpage, my Facebook postings, and my Twitter postings. It is a one-man show. Myself, I do all the technical, the research, the website, the hosting, everything. So if I seem distracted doing a few things, you know why. Let's go ahead and start with the news. We are going to talk about Iraq. We are going to talk about ISIS. But I put that down a couple slots. We're going to start off with immigration and how it's becoming the silver bullet for the insurging GOP and will bring about victory, which a lot of people are foreseeing, that the GOP may not only keep the Congress, but overtake the Senate. And what will this do to the politics out there that we've been seeing? Will it cripple Obama, or will we see more executive actions? Who knows? But what it does look like now, and what is becoming increasingly clearer, is that the Republicans can recapture the U.S. Senate and knock old Harry Reid down to a minority seat. And I can tell you this, the Democrats will not be happy, and neither will Obama. The GOP leaders have the courage to use the remaining 7 weeks to nationalize the elections around the game-changing issue like immigration. Immigration is the driving force out there right now. 2/3 of the likely voters disapprove of Obama and the way he's handled the issue. I mean, how can you not disapprove of how he's handled this issue? More and more people are becoming ever more clear, crystal clear, that is illegal immigration, although we have empathy for these kids, we cannot handle it financially. They're taking our jobs. They're impeding our kids in school by going from 10 students per teacher to 20 per teacher. They're impeding our states by taking this money that we have allocated and saying, okay, now you got to take another $13,000 per illegal student to do this. Their welfare system, the Obamacare, Illegals are filtering into every aspect of that, and we, the taxpayers, are paying for it. All in an effort so that Obama can continue to get the Democrats with their social agenda into the seats, elected into these seats of power, and turn us more and more and more into a social system until we end up like Greece or something in dire need of austerity because of all the entitlement programs that are out there. The crystallizing issue is the Texas border crisis. While the admin and liberal media have used it to use the emergency to shield for open borders, everyday Americans are saying, no, we're not buying it. We're more for law and order. These guys are coming here illegal. Sure, we still feel sorry for the little kids, but we're not buying it. And this was a tally that the Politico came up with. And it's no outlier, folks. You had the Gallup. They confirmed basically the same thing about the American attitude towards these elections. It was, I think, 22% of Americans want to increase the immigration levels. And why not? It makes sense. And like I've said, I'm not anti-immigration. I'm anti-illegal immigration. After all, my dad, my uncles, aunts, grandma, grandpa, they all immigrated here from Italy. And yes, I'm a citizen. I had a fan come on, Barbara, who accused me of not being a citizen, accused me of treason, all because I had the damn gall to question Obama. And it wasn't even really a question. It was comparing him to Adolf Hitler and Fidel Castro. And it was essentially the same pose where they were like this, saying, I'm not a dictator. But according to this extreme liberal Barbara, you are treasonous. You are not a true citizen if you question Obama. If you compare his actions and acts to other individuals. It's ridiculous. And I do the same thing for the Republicans, yet this same person won't speak up. Only when it becomes a liberal candidate, a liberal politician, do they get upset. And there's so much vitriol. I was talking to someone the other day, like a lot of the right-wingers, you got the same stuff on the right wing, but they have an argument, and they'll sit there and debate you on the issues with facts. Whereas the liberals, it seems like the extremist liberals, seem to get so upset that they immediately go into attack and name-calling and so much vitriol and so nasty and mean. I've never seen anything like it. But back to this immigration. The GOP old guard does not want to hear that the Americans don't want us to do something about an amnesty. This establishment Republicans, the blue bloods, the Eric Cantors, the John Bonehead Boyners, they were all clamoring for a GOP strike on a reform deal with Obama. And these old schoolers, they continue to believe that delivering amnesty and further boosting immigration will redeem the 2012 Romney defeat and magically transform these Hispanics into Republican voters. I can't see that happening. You know, now the polls essentially vindicate a cadre of insurgents who have managed to transform the debate by standing for American sovereignty, national security, and solidarity. And I have to believe not only because of these insurgents, but it's because of outlets like my little self. I'm small. I'm real small. Got a couple radio shows. I have this, and I have my media outlets. But you're communicating the message on what this illegal situation, what the amnesty bill really means. And people are now listening to it, and they're seeing beyond the kids' little faces and understanding some of the issues that are coming with this. And they're issues we don't have the financial capability, the wherewithal to deal with. And their own country should be dealing with the issue instead of sending them our way. And that it's only going to open the door for future illegal immigration, possibly. Now, back to the insurgents. Like I said, they're in touch with the heartland of the voters. They understand that comprehensive immigration reform would just be political suicide. They get that. And this pushback explains why Obama has postponed his pending amnesty decree until after the elections. Then he's going to do it. Then it opens up a whole new bottle of worms. And one of the senators that's been out in front on this has been Senator Sessions. He's done more than any Capitol Hill to foil these whole amnesty schemes that are out there. You know, he's stepping up and he's calling it out. We need more leaders to do that. More leaders like him, like Breitbart, Hannity, Mark Levine. And how about Alex Jones out there on the border? And some of the stories he has ran have been eye-openers to many of the public. Call him conspiracy theorist, but I tell you, he's pretty damn accurate. I read a lot of information. It's pretty factual, pretty damn accurate. You know, so basically, when waves come, candidates must ride it. To use a super euphemism that from just getting back from surfing yesterday. Most Republican challengers would probably sweep into office on immigration control. And most Democrats would be hit by a tsunami out to sea. So what they basically, what these Republicans need to do is broadcast nationally and especially in their battlegrounds, just hammering Obama, hammering the Democrats on the risk of our porous borders. What the risk will do to national security, to our welfare system, to our middle-class jobs. If the Republicans do that, they will retire enough Democrats so that they can retake the Senate and transform American politics, which we need to do. We need to transform it. We need to take it back. We'll be right back.
Is your money manager giving you safety and security? Wouldn't you like to make your money work harder for you? Then you should consider joining philsgang.com, where thousands of individual investors have successfully profited.
This year I'm up 60% on my portfolio. Following your system has been fantastic. I've been with you for about a month and a half now, and I'm already up 7%.
I've been in the business for a long time, and you're really one of the best I've ever heard.
Well, I just want to let you know what a great teacher you are.
For over a decade, philsgang.com's Phil Grandy and Donald Cogswell have been teaching, coaching, and investing right along with all Phil's Gang members.
I want to thank Donnie for market wrap. I bought 2,500 shares of AUI and sold it this morning at $820 profit.
Why not join thousands of satisfied Phil's Gang customers today? Go to philsgang.com, philsgang.com, or call 877-600-4264. That's 877-600-4264. Call today.
You know, Phil's Gang, they would sponsor my weekend show, which we just got word that the WLSS radio station is going to continue to pick up, which is good for me, meaning I'm doing the right stuff on there. But I was listening to the weekday show, and they were talking about how FedEx announced, and I think they announced 15 cents per share profit, but they spent 16 cents or something like that, basically buying back their own stock. So in essence, they actually had a 1 cent per share loss. But people don't realize that because what a lot of these bigger companies do is they go back and buy back their stock to make it look like they're building more value into their company. And they use little tricks like that. And now most of the experts know about this stuff, but the little common folk like myself don't know about it. So he had a conversation with Bob Rainier, Donnie Cogswell. He was sitting in for Phil yesterday. It was an interesting conversation. So whenever you can catch them, philsgang.com. You can go there. They're on at 9 and 3 to 5 during the week. And then obviously my weekend show on Saturday at 12. So Ebola. I showed a video. I think it was on my Tuesday show where basically they had this Ebola victim. He escaped. He was running around the streets. Many unprotected people were within 5 feet of this guy. They finally had hazmat come out and take him back into the quarantine. And we've seen many situations there where they just do not have control of this virus. They had 30 people that were that have Ebola that escaped during a riot one day I think it was just last month, and they were roaming the streets of the capital with 1 million people. Many of the blood-stained sheets and everything else were stolen. during this looting session. So what do? The president decided, hey, we're going to send 3,000 troops there. And many people are concerned, as am I, that we're sending them into harm's way. We're sending them over into this area where they could possibly get infected. We've seen it. A few Americans have already been infected. Then what happens if they come back? Something Alex Jones brought up, and I'm mentioning this because his father is a doctor, and something I didn't think about is what if they come back and they cure them, like these 2 or 3 doctors they've cured so far. That virus can remain in the system and could potentially impact somebody else down the road. And somebody else used an analogy, my friend, and they said, it's like my horse farm. My horse got Lyme disease. Well, that horse couldn't give me the Lyme disease down the road, and he was cured, but it was still within his system. And if a mosquito bit that horse and then bit me, I could get that Lyme disease. Food for thought, folks. But now the whole premise here is sending troops there, and we're allocating money over to it. A little late. Why didn't we do this earlier? They're starting to realize that this epidemic is getting out of control, that countries like Liberia just do not have the wherewithal to contain it and to try to cure it or resolve it, because there's no real cure out there. But now you got them coming back, and HHS is telling the hospitals, you guys need to be ready for Ebola. And it's starting to make us think, how much in the dark are we on the severity of the Ebola? You got HHS coming in saying, expect an influx in your hospitals. And here's a checklist you need to go through. Basically, they said it's been in all 50 states. It might have been just a routine inquiry just in case it comes here, or do they know something more? You got to think HHS, they can know something more. CDC has told hospitals to prepare for an outbreak. But you're not seeing this on the major media. Why aren't they communicating that to the public? Obama characterized the African outbreak as a threat to global security. He said that the reality is that this epidemic is going to get worse before it gets better. And that's when he decided to send 3,000 troops there, engineers and medical personnel. But guess what? When they were Doctors Without Borders and all these different groups were asked, hey, what's being done? Do you guys have any action plan? They really don't. They don't know what kind of experts are going there. And then I found out it's not the Defense Department that's running it. It's the State Department that's running it. Because people were saying, okay, troops are going there. So the Pentagon, you guys must know what's going on over there. How are you taking care of it? Who are you sending over? What's your game plan? When they come back, how are you going to make sure they don't have it? And they said, we don't know because the State Department's controlling it. And the State Department does not have a game plan ready, which is pretty scary, folks. This is scary stuff with this whole Ebola virus. Now, I got a short video we're going to watch, and let me prep it up real quick and get you guys to the right screen.
I want to get into this Ebola news now. Mail Online has an article. U.S. to send 3,000 troops to Ebola danger zone as Obama administration shuffles military's mission in Africa. Yeah, there's no shuffling. That's been the plan, which we talked to you about in Obama Deception. Webster Tarpley broke it down, how AFRICOM is going to go in, and that's the next place, and that's why we need a black president to go into Africa. But what's really interesting is you go through this article, and they talked to a Pentagon official, Mail Online did. He says, combat soldiers and Marines will be on hand and ready for anything, said the official, who has knowledge of some but not all of the Ebola-related planning. But hopefully it will be all logistics and hospital building. The president has ordered us to help, and we're eager to do it, he said. Now, it looks like we're going to be the lead dog, and that's bound to make a lot of people nervous. I wonder why. And it's understandable. But no one wants U.S. personnel enforcing someone else's martial law if things go south and the entire region is at risk. At that point, in the response like this, we would normally play a support role for USAID, and that's Soros run, and the CDC, he said, referring to U.S. Agency of International Development and the Centers for Disease Control. So we're sending troops there possibly for a martial law scenario, which they have been training for under the guise of this zombie apocalypse. There's a Christian Science Monitor article from 2012. U.S. military forces train for zombie apocalypse. And Brad Barker, president of Halo Corp, says this is a really good exercise, not just some kind of costume party. I think it's amazing that he's president of Halo Corp. Why not just be the president of the Umbrella Corporation and get it over with? Those of you who've watched Resident Evil will understand that. And over the weekend, there was an interesting article from the New York Times, an opinion piece called The Great Unraveling, just talking about how the systems are breaking down. And this is all done by design to get us into other wars, open up the borders so you have different types of people coming in who aren't supposed to be coming into your country. And you've got these pandemics breaking out with Ebola, all kinds of stuff, really amazing stuff.
You are watching the best of the Alex Jones Show.
Bouncing everywhere. Okay. Never, when you're doing a video, start reading another email. It will bring you down, and you'll see stuff like that. All right, we're going to go to a quick commercial while I get ready for our next segment, which is ISIS. Yes, we're going to talk ISIS, folks. Get some of this great apparel from theroguegrant.com or the Uncensored Report or thevintascoop.com. We have hats, shirts, coffee mugs. They say educate, inspire, and change. Or for my Scoop fans, it'll say the Vintascoop, Sarasota Scoop, etc. Help me with this operation so I can continue to get a fresh perspective on the news out to the masses. Thanks a lot, and have a great day. Just go to my website and click on the icon. Hey everybody, this is Frankie, and I'm here today to introduce Longevity. It's a great nutritional supplement to anybody that's eating right or not eating right. I take supplements on a regular basis, and Longevity cannot be beat, especially at some of the great price points. So go to theroguegrant.com or the uncensoredreport.com and click on shop. Go down to Longevity, click on it, and you'll be helping out the operations of the station so that we can continue to bring you a fresh perspective on alternative news. Longevity, check it out today. Okay, and that's what it's all about, folks. Educate, inspire, and affect change. And that's what we're trying to do here. That's what the show is all about. Now we're going to discuss ISIS. We're going to discuss Syria. We're going to discuss Baghdad. We're going to discuss generals wanting boots on the ground, but Obama saying no groups on the ground. They're advisors. But if you remember back to Vietnam, those were advisors. I don't know in the beginning how many thousands, like 60,000, 30,000 advisors. And they were actually involved in combat related issues out there. So I don't know why they call it advisors as the way of sending troops in without saying I'm sending troops in. But when I hear that 3,000 advisors are going there, or 50,000 or 60,000, I start to say troops are in the area, boots are on the ground. So what's most disturbing out of all this is the idiots in Congress, the Republicans. They've passed, not only what they did, which is they passed an authorization to doubt, despite the doubts about the money flowing to these rebels, the Free Syrian Army and other moderate rebels, which just signed a pact with ISIS to not fight each other and fight against the Syrian regime. But Obama, the Republicans, and some Democrats too, elected to pass this through the Congress, saying let's fund these guys, let's fund them, even though they're working hand in hand with ISIS, and they signed a pact not to fight ISIS. We're going to fund them to fight ISIS. Are they crazy? Is anybody out there listening to this, and why is it being allowed? How is it that the House voted to provide the Obama administration with authority to arm and train Syrian rebels to fight against ISIS? Look, the Syrian rebels, the moderates, are the actual people that lived in Syria that want to overthrow the Syrian government. They don't want to fight ISIS. Are we stupid? Is there anyone with a brain in Congress? The legislation provides Obama with the authority to go in there. Help out the opposition. Give them guns. They got to go fight ISIS. Just days after signing the pact that they won't. Just days after they said, Obama, you're not our boss. We're going to do what we want. Now, this amendment explicitly denies authority for ground troops, which all the generals are saying are needed. And that's where we're going to cover in a second, where there's this great disparity between Obama and what the generals want. But most, what really is annoying too is some of these Republicans, like Tom Cole. He said, "I think there's not a high level of confidence in the president as a war leader. Yet we're going to give him these funds." And I just don't get it, folks. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm an idiot, but I don't get why we are funding a group of rebels that are known for working hand in hand with al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS. They just signed this pact saying we will not fight ISIS, yet we're giving them $5 million to go off and fight ISIS. We're going to provide air support for them to go off and fight ISIS. Something's not mixing here, folks. Something's not, what about how about vetting the Syrian rebels? Who's going to do that to ensure that these weapons ended up in the right hands? What about, are we going to be pulled into future action when Syria gets upset that we're violating their state sovereignty? And everyone's jumping on board, and it's just, from the Republicans to the Democrats, I don't get it. Now, they have this new, what is it? I saw a video ISIS put out, basically after Obama's speech, flaming the war something, and they basically come on showing blowing up U.S. stuff and saying and they're creating a movie. It was actually pretty interesting. It's like 30 seconds long. Now we're talking about a Islamic State that's well organized, well funded. They're saying ever since Obama's speech about coming in and going after them and doing airstrikes that their recruitment's increased, and they're saying thank you, Obama. They say that 162 people have attended 2 separate camps for ISIS. And they're saying, thanks, Obama, you're driving up our recruiting. Because they don't want you here. And they broke down, it was Australian nationals, non-Syrian Arabs, and they tried to break down the nationality of people. ISIS militants and so-called moderate Syrian rebels, like I said, signed the non-aggression pact. In addition, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb have set up about a campaign to unite the rival militant groups in Iraq and Syria. They have over 50,000 fighters, the ISIS does. How is a moderate rebel going to fight ISIS with 50,000 soldiers? Assad, something's not right here, folks. Something's not right here. I read some of this stuff, some of these articles out here, and it's just amazing. And then you get the generals piping in. You got Obama definitely saying no troops on the ground. There will not be any troops. And the generals are saying we need troops on the ground, and they're not on the same page. The major address explaining America's new war against ISIS, President Obama pledged that we will not put those troops on the ground. Yet Dempsey was coming out and saying we'll need boots on the ground in the future. Now you have the White House there, and they're glossing over the rift between the president and his generals. But it's clear that just below the waterline, Obama is not on the same page as his commanders. Or is he playing politics? He's on the same page. He gets what they're saying. He knows what they're saying. But he knows politically it's going to kill the Democrats, and he's not going to buy into it. I bet that's something else you see after the election. Boots on the ground. And this internal dissent between the generals and Obama are likely to intensify. Because more and more generals are starting to step up. But they want the boots on the ground. They want to go out there and fight. And none of us want that. Why? This is a de facto way to get in there and take on the Syrian army, folks. That's all it is. It's also a dim picture of what fighting ISIS will be like. I'm less than optimistic about the prospects of success. with this strategy, which seems like a non-strategy. How can we be successfully out there fighting ISIS in Syria or in Iraq? Because you're going to see in Iraq, I'm going to tell you about in a few seconds some issues there. But how can we have confidence in a strategy where you're giving rebels, financing and training rebels that refuse to fight ISIS to go out and fight ISIS? It's not going to work, folks. It's not going to work. And you're eventually going to need boots on the ground, Americans on the ground. And I'm not a fan of that. Because I think, like I said, it's a way to get in there and start to take down the Assad regime. And who are they going to put in? More extremists. Just like Mubarak in Egypt. They helped bring him down. They got extremists in there. They brought down the Ukraine government. And they put in these Nazi extremists in there. We need to get out of the business nation building game, folks. Because we suck at it. And, now you got Iran's proxies warning Obama to stay out of Iraq. I reported a while ago we had about 2,000 Iranian soldiers in there. But this week, some of the Iraqi militias fighting ISIS issued a warning to President Obama. They said, stay out of here. We don't want you here. Like that one young guy, Mutada al-Sadr. All these, basically the ones that are in there fighting ISIS, will, if they win, will control Iraq. And they're all heavily tied now to Iran. They're the Shiite militias. And they're saying, stay out of Iraq. So now you got the Shiite militias, which are basically controlling the environment there, saying, we don't want you here, stay out of here. You got Syria doesn't want them in their space. But the United States is just going in there and saying, F all of you guys. The groups which received considerable backing from Iran, they fought bitterly with the U.S. and our coalition forces when we were there. They want nothing to do with us. This week, Iran's supreme leader publicly rejected Obama administration's treaties to cooperate in the fight against ISIS. They don't want it. They don't want it. They're expecting a total of 1,600 personnel to be sent to Iraq. But Dempsey's in there saying we're probably going to need more. It's a dire situation there, folks, and we need to wake up. We need to see what's going on there, and we need to take action. We'll be right back. 1-800-PET-MEDS. Yes, get your pet essentials, your medicines, your collars, everything you need online. And guess what? You'll be supporting the operations of this great station, the Uncensored Report. So go to my website, click on the icon for 1-800-PET-MEDS, and help us continue the information war that's going on out there. Hey everybody, have you thought about fluoride, how it's dumbing us down? Why don't you give Fluoride Shield a try? Or how about Survival Shield to help you get the iodine that's been taken out of our salts? Give both of these products a try. Just go to theroguerat.com or theuncensoredreport.com. Click on my shop area and click on the InfoWars icon. It'll give credit to the operation and help us continue to get the message out there. Have a great day. All right, folks, we're back. Get rid of that echo. Okay, now, what I figure is yesterday was Constitution Day, so I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the Constitution. I would have loved to do it yesterday if I was here, but I wasn't. So we're going to talk about it a little bit today. Not just the Constitution, but the move right now to have a constitutional convention to change the Constitution. And I think I actually touched on this a lot, I think, on Tuesday's show. But I wanted to expand a little bit more on it. But let's first start with the Constitution. Yesterday marked the 227th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution, which forged our government's unique way of doing things into the world. It got rid of the tyrants and the oppressive regimes. Because of it, our country has enjoyed more than 2 centuries of freedom. And we have the bravery and foresight of a mere handful of individuals to thank for it, our founding fathers. Our founding fathers They knew that these problems in their native countries had to do not with imperfect governments, but too much of it. So they wanted limited interference of the people. And basically the Constitution's strength lies in its simplicity. That it exists to protect citizens. And it tells government basically, leave us alone unless you're there to promote general welfare. And before it was ratified, you had the Articles of Confederation. They were the law of the land. They established limited government, limited, key word there, folks, and provided no power to tax national defense and no means to settle disputes between states. So they met our founding fathers met in, say, 1787 in Philadelphia. They wanted to make it stronger. They wanted to limit government's powers. They came up with the Bill of Rights. And they created, essentially, the Constitution that we have now. Many now believe we live in an under democracy, but even a cursory reading of the Constitution reveals that we do not. The word democracy does not appear even once in this Constitution. And the founding fathers, they knew that democracies are too volatile. They are governed by the majority, by popular opinion, which sounds great until you consider the popular opinion has erroneously held such beliefs as the earth is flat, or a man is named Hitler had some great ideas. So our founding fathers basically gave us the republic, and we have to remember that. So that's what days like yesterday are about. You know, and you got this constitutional convention, which I was talking about, which Coburn wants to go into, and the pitfalls to possibly have opening up a con-con, because you can't limit what can be changed in a con-con. And basically, people can come in and change term. You know, he wants to change term limits. Term limits on congressional members isn't going to do much for financial stability. We've seen that with the president. But what he doesn't realize with the con-con is that it could cancel the entire Constitution. And that's basically what happened in 1787. A con-con can't be limited. So you could abolish the Bill of Rights. You could cancel term limits of the president and destroy numerous limitations of federal power. And even though what he wants is to try to get more of a balanced budget, he's opening up a whole new can of worms. And does he realize this? So while we applaud Dr. Coburn for his praiseworthy years of service in Congress, we have to disagree with him wanting a con-con. Term limits don't bring about real change. A balanced budget amendment would do so, but be so full with loopholes like they always are. It'd be worthless. And a con-con just opens us up to enormous dangers. The path for real change wanted by many of the Americans out there begins with an educated electorate. There's no other way. And the only organization doing this since 1958 has been the John Birch Society. So food for thought on this day after the Constitutional Day. And I sincerely wish I was around to discuss it yesterday. Another issue I wanted to discuss is Washington's war against Russia. And does it make sense? Are they opening up a whole other can of worms? They got these new sanctions that were announced against Russia that just do not make sense from any economic measures for Europe or Washington. Basically, these new sanctions that were announced by the West, Europeans in Washington, they do not make sense from an economic standpoint. I would be surprised if Russia's oil and military industry were dependent on European capital markets in a meaningful way, because such dependence would be catastrophic for them. Strategically, it's not good thinking. The Russian companies should be able to secure adequate financing from Russian banks or from other countries, borrowing from China. If critical Russian industries are dependent on the European capital markets, the sanctions will help Russia by forcing them to end this debilitating dependence. Russia has to learn that, hey, the West is not there for us. We need to break our ties with them. So the real question is the purpose of these sanctions. You know, if it gets too bad where it's having too much of a problem or too much of an impedance on Russia, guess what they're going to do? They're going to cut off all oil supplies to these European nations that rely on it. They rely on this gas. You know, the Russian President Putin and his government have been very low-key and unprovocative in responding to the sanctions. And to the trouble that Washington continues to cause in Russia, or to Russia, with the Ukraine. Though, and this whole low-key behavior by Russia could be understood because the strategy for undermining Washington's use of Europe against Russia by presenting non-threatening face to Europe. Basically, the ones that are getting hurt here are Europe, basically Europe. So, it's just food for thought, folks. Food for thought. The U.S. economy is not dependent on looting and plundering. Our hegemony is essentially essential to this corrupt form of capitalism that we have. So, food for thought. Sorry, I got caught in that food for thought just now. We'll be right back. Check out My Patriot Supply. They got the straw there. That straw is great. I tell you what, folks, you can go out and basically, if we're in a critical situation and there's a massive hurricane, there's no water, guess what? You use these straws, the life straw, out there in the pond, and it cleans out all the water and gets you filtered water. How can you beat it? Check it out. Check the product and much more, and help support the operations at theuncensoredreport.com. All right, folks, and looks like we have about 5 minutes. We're going to go ahead and cover an issue that I basically covered on my live show on Tuesday, but just in case you missed it, and I think it's important just to get an understanding of it, is the federal regulations and the cost, how it's costing the U.S. $2 trillion per year. We have these regulations. They're imposed upon Americans, costing Americans a ton of money. But Washington, D.C. politicians, bureaucrats, they don't see any of that. That drag represents a well-covered 10% of the GDP, but they don't care. Especially burdened under this regulatory regime are the small businesses and the manufacturers. Hence why many are taking off. Small businesses are the key sectors out there for bringing about employment, growth, and exporting amid this blooming U.S. trade and budget deficit, which is killing us. The most harmful and costly regulations and decrees surround alleged environmental issues. And there's been a lot of disagreement on if these environmental issues are real, true issues that need to be regulated. The cost of federal regulation on the economy, the manufacturing, small businesses that it's inflicted over the years has been astronomical. Just in over the last decade, more than 37,000 federal regulations have been imposed upon the American people and their businesses. About 90% of the manufacturers that are out there have said, hey, look, one of the top business challenges to us is meeting these regulatory guidelines. And the pace and the burden of these decrees is accelerating with Obama in there. And it's getting real crazy. And it's taken away from jobs. According to the study, an average U.S. company pays a stunning $10,000 per employee every year to comply with these regulations. And what it does is it's harming and bankrupting businesses, putting Americans out of work, sending jobs overseas, capital overseas, companies overseas, until lawmakers take action to rein it all in. And we still have more incoming decrees, which could prove even more destructive. It's going to be even more significant regulations out there, folks. The new EPA ozone scheme could reduce the U.S. GDP by more than $250 billion while killing some 3 million jobs and sending energy costs soaring. What's going to be done about this? the impact it's having on the common folk. As the political class in D.C. continue to wreak havoc on our economy, the swarms of federal bureaucrats enforcing all these schemes are becoming militarized. You had the Department of Agriculture with some machine guns. The Department of Education using SWAT teams to go in after someone for not returning books. Why are we heavily arming these bureaucrats? Why does the Department of Homeland Security season vehicles that do not meet single EPA endless edicts out there? And where will it all end? The nightmare's federal regulatory regime has virtually none of it's been authorized in the Constitution, is only one component of the federal government's economically devastating policies that are out there, folks. There's other problems that exist, according to many economists out there, economists. Wild levels of taxation, unique system of citizen-based taxation, gargantuan levels of government borrowing and spending, the free trade agreements. Taken together, more than a few critics have suggested that it would be hard for the feds to do more thorough of a job destroying this economy because they're doing a great job at it. Perhaps an effort to sound diplomatic relations and policies that will get rid of these regulations. Perhaps that will help. I don't think they will, though, folks. I think instead of smarter regulations, a full-scale return to timeless principles of federalism, constitutional governance, sound money, free markets is what America needs, and it hopes to thrive once again. Consider the trends. It may seem like an insurmountable task is ahead of us, but it's really not, folks. With the concerted actions of the American people to hold their elected officials accountable. And that's not happening. That's the biggest hindrance to us out there, to our growth. You know, they're making these companies that are going overseas and vilifying them. Why not just lower the tax bracket so that it's more competitive with the other international countries out there? Then these companies will not be leaving. They will not be leaving to these other countries for the lower tax break. But we don't get it. We just want to villainize them and post penalties on them for doing what most any of us would do. It's pure craziness, folks. Pure craziness. And for the life of me, I don't get it. I don't get so much of the government action. Here locally, we just had this local city council say, hey, we want to control yard sales. Control yard sales. They want you to give them 3-day notice whenever you're going to have a yard sale. They want to try to control it. Government control at every level, from city to state to county to federal. We don't need it. We need limited government. Let the free markets take control. Let the free markets work their way through the system. That's why we're in the dire situation we're in now, folks. Dire situation. And I just don't know what to do about it anymore. I could continue to preach out here, but is anyone listening? I don't know if I have one viewer, 30,000 viewers. I have no idea. The way I route you guys through my website, I don't get a good count from YouTube. I don't get a horrible count. But hopefully the message is getting out there. Hopefully through my outlet. I know it's getting out there through outlets like Alex Jones with his fan base. Hopefully through my radio show. That we're communicating. People are starting to listen. People are starting to wake up to the Matrix. I remember I was telling someone the other day, I was watching Matrix, and I didn't get it. And then I started researching more in what we call waking up, and I started realizing we are in a Matrix. And I started getting the whole principle behind that movie. Watch it a couple times in a row. And hopefully you'll wake up. After all, my objective is to educate, inspire, and affect change. And hopefully we're affecting change out there. At the local level, state level, international level, federal level. All right, folks, that's been the show. I will be back tomorrow at 9. I have to go and record my Saturday show in a little bit over with Phil's gang, so make sure you catch that too. And that's it for Frankie. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning.